Why does The Rock want Cody Rhodes' soul? That is not a question we were expecting to be asking coming out of this week's edition of WWE SmackDown, but it is, and here we are, as The Rock did make his return to SmackDown to announce what we all knew was going to be the case, that New Orleans was going to be the host city for WrestleMania 42, but as I mentioned in yesterday's video, it wasn't just going to be that. WWE had hyped it up too much with Triple H's comments and everything else. They couldn't just have him show up, announce WrestleMania 42 for New Orleans, and that be it. You had to have something more for The Rock. And we knew, too, whenever they announced that they were going to do a press conference after SmackDown, when have we heard that before? A press conference after SmackDown. You knew it was going to be something significant. And so The Rock comes back, and what does he do? He takes aim at Cody Rhodes again, right? He welcomes Cody into the ring, and now we have more questions than answers, which has kind of been a theme of not only The Rock segments over the past year or so, but also the Triple H era. We're having a lot of questions coming out of this to figure out where exactly are we going with this whole thing with The Rock wanting Cody Rhodes' soul. What's the reason behind it? Well, there are a lot of different theories. As always, we like to look at different options as to what WWE could be cooking up here when it comes to this whole dynamic. And I think the first question is, how quickly did this thing come together, right? You see all the reports out there. WWE legitimately maybe didn't know that this was going to be the case until Thursday. And so how much is sort of changing and pivoting from there? There's the word again, pivot, right? That was the whole buzzword last year during WrestleMania 40 season. Are they pivoting again to now insert The Rock into something big with Cody Rhodes here on the road to WrestleMania 41 and beyond? Well, we're going to find out. Either way, it is something that we know is going to continue because now we're going to wait and see if there is a transaction between Cody Rhodes' soul and The Rock at the Elimination Chamber in Toronto coming up next weekend. And so it goes back to the original question. Why does The Rock want Cody Rhodes' soul? Well, there's a lot of ways you could go with this, as always, but I think what's interesting about this is when you look at these two in the ring on SmackDown on Friday, you're seeing how they are certainly in maybe different spots than, even a year ago we would have expected, right? We didn't think these two would be buddy-buddy and be friends the way The Rock's talking them up, talking about drinking tequila. Mama Rhodes has become friends with Rock's mom, all this other stuff. And so The Rock really laying it on thick here, right? And we see that this dynamic has changed a bit for The Rock. He used to be the people's champion, right? He's an active wrestler. The Rock was the people's champ. He was the person out there fighting for the people. Well, now he's looking across the ring at someone who is exactly in that same role because Cody himself said he's a champion for the people, right? And so Cody has now become the people's champ. I know he's not everyone's champ. Not everyone's been a fan of Cody's reign. I understand that. But if we're looking at it between the dynamic of these two, that's where maybe it starts, is The Rock does see Cody as the people's champion. Well, the difference now is that The Rock is not just someone who is out for the people. As much as he may want the people to think that, The Rock, as he said, is on the TKO board. He's a director of the TKO board in WWE. And while everyone says, he has power, he may not own WWE, but as he mentioned in the exact quote, but he has the most power. And so you're looking at The Rock, someone who finds himself on the downturn of his career. He doesn't know how many matches he has left. He came back last year, had the big tag team match, but we've not really seen anything beyond that, right? People are still wondering, is The Rock ever going to wrestle again? Well, maybe those are the same kind of questions that The Rock now must face as someone who is sort of not an active wrestler anymore and wondering, has he wrestled his last match? But because this is the final boss, it's all about the final boss character. And that we've said, going back to last year, he is sort of that end goal for whoever the champion is or whoever that person is, that does maybe have the most power in WWE from a wrestling perspective. Cody has that now because he's the WWE Undisputed Champion, right? And so The Rock, knowing that he can no longer get in the ring, he can no longer be the person carrying the belt for the people or for himself, well, he needs to use that power. He needs that control, and he needs to be able to use it by having someone that he can control, right? I feel like that's part of this whole equation when you really look at it, and that's what they're playing up. And I know a lot of people will point back to the corporate Rock stuff, right? We go all the way back to the big turn that they had back at Survivor Series in 1998, where The Rock becomes the corporate champion, all of these things. And you can tell they're adding in some of those little bitty wrinkles like that to make you feel like, okay, maybe that The Rock wants Cody Rhodes to be in the corporate Rock role, right? You had, of course, the former owner of WWE, Vince McMahon, playing that role then, and now you have The Rock kind of looking at it and saying, maybe I'm the person who has all the power in WWE, and I want my own corporate champion. I want someone who I can control. And as The Rock said, he wants Cody Rhodes to have billions of followers on Instagram. He wants all those things for Cody. He's been treating him to the good life, right? He's been hanging out with Cody, drinking tequila, as we said, and all these things. They've been good friends since everything that happened a year ago. So why does The Rock want Cody Rhodes' soul? Because maybe that's the only way that the power-hungry final boss, not just The Rock, not Dwayne Johnson, the power-hungry final boss, that's the only way he can get what he really wants. And again, that is control. And so, is Cody going to be the person that he feels like he can control in all of this? Like we said, that's where we have more questions maybe than we do answers right now. And so, is this exactly the path that they're going to take, where this is all about the next evolution, not just maybe of Cody Rhodes? Because what have we talked about? You guys have mentioned it when we've done live streams. You mentioned it in the comments. Are we ever going to get that Cody Rhodes heel turn? Is he ever going to come, maybe, turn to the dark side here? We've seen some of those things come out, right? Look at where he was willing to take things with Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble. He was willing to destroy his former best friend for what? To keep that championship. He was willing to do whatever it took to do that. And like we said, you even had the visual where Sami Zayn's watching this. Cody's like standing over a broken Kevin Owens. But that was what Cody was willing to do to keep his championship. And we've mentioned maybe all along, Kevin Owens was right. Maybe the shirt is right. That Kevin Owens has been onto something with Cody Rhodes, whether it's the friendship with him, whether it's Cody's friendship with Randy Orton, who we still haven't seen in a while, right? Is Cody Rhodes willing to take that next step and be a sellout, sell his soul to the final boss? That's what we're going to find out. But we all probably know the answer to that, right? I don't think The Rock is just going to show up at Elimination Chamber and Cody Rhodes is just going to reach into his chest and say, here you go, Rock, here's my soul. I don't think that's going to happen. So we have to wonder what then is next. What are they teasing? What are the hints they're giving us when it comes to where exactly they're going to go with this thing? Because, as we mentioned, we knew kind of going into this WrestleMania 41 season, especially post-Royal Rumble, it seemed like you were starting to see some of those dynamics in play as to the big matches you were going to get. We weren't all fans of the idea that you could maybe get Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, and maybe you were going to have the John Cena versus Cody Rhodes match. I know those matches weren't for everyone. Remember, a year ago, we're talking about, oh man, look at WrestleMania 41. We could get The Rock versus Cody. We could get The Rock versus Roman. We could get the triple threat between those guys. And then, even as far as a month ago, man, we're going to get Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. We're going to get this. We're going to get that, right? All these different combinations. But now, like I said, more questions than answers as to what match we may actually get coming out of this. Because like I mentioned, I don't think Cody's going to sell his soul to The Rock at the Elimination Chamber. How does The Rock respond? What is his reaction? Because like I mentioned, The Rock does want someone that he can control. If it's not Cody Rhodes, if Cody says, you know what, it's not me. I'm the people's champion. You're not going to get me, to come to your side here. We're not going to play that game, which we know is going to be some variation of Cody's response when The Rock asks him. So again, now we ask the question of, well, what does that mean for the Elimination Chamber match? If John Cena, the favorite, is going to win that match, and let's say, none of the other guys win it, does The Rock then try to make John Cena the corporate champion? That's a wild thing to think about, right? Is he going to try to get John Cena, twirling John Cena around his finger here and feeling like, okay, maybe I'm going to finally get that John Cena heel turn? It's an interesting dynamic when you think of it. I know it's not something that any of us expected to be talking about coming out of the SmackDown, like I said. But the way they've done this now, as maybe cheesy as it sounds to some people, it is kind of fascinating to wonder, is this going to be a game where The Rock is trying to turn either Cody Rhodes or John Cena, potentially? But there are also some other things in play here. Because if you think about it, I've seen some people have the theory, how does this tie into maybe CM Punk's favor with Paul Heyman? And could it be one of the wildest twists you've ever seen in WWE, or maybe it's CM Punk who ultimately is the sellout? Because he said it, right? Punk didn't come back to make friends. He came back to make money. And if CM Punk, who's also, maybe been someone who's chased after the power in the past, is CM Punk willing to sell his soul to The Rock to eventually get that one thing that's eluded him, right? It's that WrestleMania main event, and it's maybe winning the championship in the main event of WrestleMania. Well, that would go against, like we said, the theory that Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk is a match that's already on the cards for WrestleMania 41. But if The Rock just comes back now and all of a sudden the card gets thrown all over the place, well, that could change things, right? So what I'm saying in this is that I came out of that segment probably like a lot of people just sitting there going, I don't really know what to make of what I just saw in the ring there. But I think when you really maybe dive a little bit more into it, there are a lot of kind of fun ways they can go with this. And I know it's not going to be for everyone because we sort of mentioned, it does kind of give you the idea that dream match that people have wanted for years and years and years, The Rock versus Roman Reigns, it's not happening this year. Maybe it happens next year at WrestleMania 42 in New Orleans. But as I've always said, The Rock's going to be a year older. Roman Reigns is no longer an active competitor. So how do you get to that point a full year from now? But if you think about it within the context of what they're actually working with here and what the next steps of this could be, there are a lot of fun ideas that you could work with. Whether it's, like I said, I don't think The Rock's going to be turning Cody Rhodes at the Elimination Chamber. Maybe they do, right? Maybe they do the big swerve and that's going to happen. I don't think so because Cody is the merch seller, and I don't know that WWE wants to be, kind of put him on that side just yet. But you never know. We didn't really know all the twists that were going to happen last year on the road to WrestleMania 40. If you go beyond that, well, is The Rock going to try to, sell himself to John Cena? And then, how does it play into CM Punk? Also, another great candidate, I think, out there. We know Drew McIntyre's on SmackDown now, right? Is Drew going to be the person that eventually dethrones Cody Rhodes? Because you could certainly see Drew as the person that The Rock chooses, right? The former chosen one, Drew McIntyre, may be the person that The Rock says. And remember, they did all the contract stuff where you had the big thing where Drew got his, new WWE contract delivered from The Rock and the gifts were exchanged and all this other stuff. Could they do something fun like that? That's another possibility, I suppose. And so these are all things, like I mentioned, we keep going back to we don't have the answers, but we have a lot more questions. And I think sometimes with the way WWE likes to do it, even Michael Cole has said, right? It's about the storytelling these days, not just about the match you're going to get in the ring. They're trying to tell the story here. And while this probably wasn't the one we were expecting them to tell, I do think there's a lot of fun directions you can go with it. And we're just going to have to wait and see, is this exactly something that's going to play out this way? And I know one more thing, because there's a lot we have to sort of, clean up here when it comes to what's going on. Does this mean that maybe when Cody Rhodes turns down The Rock, or maybe we don't get a definitive answer at the Elimination Chamber? I've seen a lot of people say, hey, maybe this is where The Rock puts himself into the main event of WrestleMania 41. Not as a competitor, but maybe as the referee or some sort of person that's sort of, the authority figure in this match for WrestleMania 41, because he wants to control the person coming out of it and wants them to be the corporate champion, right? He wants to be able to pick who he wants to be his champ. So again, if you have that dynamic between Cody and John Cena, what's The Rock going to do? That's an interesting question. If you were to somehow add CM Punk into this, it becomes even more, I think, sort of fun to think about because there are so many ways you can go with this. So I know the initial sort of backlash, I think, was that this felt like a segment that really wasn't going to go anywhere, and you're still wondering, again, what are we bringing up souls for and all this other stuff? But if you tie it into the context of The Rock being a former corporate champ, now he's playing the power role. He is the authority over the WWE. He feels like he's the person who has the most power as someone on the TKO board. It does make a little bit of sense as to why they maybe decided to go this direction, especially knowing that The Rock seems unlikely to be wrestling anytime soon. So now you put him as the power-hungry executive, final boss. He wants all the power, and to do that, you have to have the champion under your control. So that's where we are right now. I know you guys have probably a lot better theories than me, but I want to know what you're thinking about this whole thing coming out of it. What did you think of the segment? What do you think is going to happen next, especially as we head towards Elimination Chamber? Does this change who's going to win the Chamber match? Do you think Cody Rhodes is going to hand his soul to The Rock in Toronto? If not, what happens from there? Is The Rock going to be involved at WrestleMania 41? Lots of fun stuff to discuss here coming out of this, but that's what happens. Triple H wasn't wrong when he said that you never know. When the final boss comes back to town during WrestleMania season, anything can happen. Everything could change in an instant. Well, seemingly it has, and we'll see if it's changed anything for WWE's plans on the road to WrestleMania 41. But appreciate you guys. What do you think about what's going to happen here? Let me know your thoughts on what's next for The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and everything else. Always enjoy your feedback. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on your way out. And let me know your thoughts on what's next for Cody Rhodes, his soul, and the final boss, The Rock.